Hi guys!
Hello.
I am Victoria, and that is...
Devin.
Yep, and that is you.
Watching us.
Yep. Why? Never mind. And welcome to the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast, where we explore things...
Episode 43.
About Odyssey. Yeah, episode 43. Today we are going to be reviewing...
I think that was like the most ironically depressing intro we've ever done before. That beats out all the other ones.
What's that supposed to mean?
Sorry. Today we are reviewing The Ties That Bind, parts 1 and 2. Yes.
Are you saying I'm depressing?
Yes. Season 58 has begun. Spring has sprung.
Woo!
Starting off with episode 751.
Confetti!
We are moving into the final quadrant of the first 1,000 episodes of Adventures in Odyssey.
And what a strong start it was. Strongish.
Or will be.
Will be.
Yeah.
It was good-ish. Other than a couple things. But it was good.
They haven't listened to the first part review yet, Victoria. So, speak of the devil. We'll launch you off into that right now. Hello, everybody. Here we are, back from the intro, ready to record. What, Victoria?
Oh my gosh, album 58!
The Ties That Bind, part 1.
So many things happened in this episode! After I finished it, I ran over to my mom, and I just fangirled so hard in front of her. I'm telling her everything that's going on. So I spoiled a bunch of stuff. But she just listened to the Green Ring Conspiracy a week ago, so... yeah, I could tell her things and she'd actually get it.
Did she like the end of it?
Well, all I told her was two characters.
No, I mean
up
the end of the Green Ring Conspiracy.
Oh, yes, she did.
That's good. Yes.
And then she listened to the Labyrinth right after.
Episode 751. We are now past
50.
The mark of 3/4 of 1,000 episodes. Even though episode 750 and the ones a couple before it haven't actually come out yet because they're the OAC episodes for the next couple months, this is still technically classified as episode 751. So that's exciting. We're moving into the last quadrant of the first 1,000 episodes of Adventures in Odyssey.
The last quadrant.
Episodes.
That sounds so sad and lonely.
Caligulous. That's what's happening here.
Well, it is between Wit and Mrs. What's-Her-Name,
Adelaide.
Which is a good way to segue into starting the episode.
Yes, even though that doesn't happen until halfway through. Okay, so this episode was written by Paul McCusker. Very exciting, as I figured that it would be written by him. Victoria, do you have an episode summary for us?
No, but I can come up with one really quick.
Okay.
Okay, so the episode starts off with Connie and Wit talking about how Buck is soon going to get
shorter summary than that.
Juvenile detention. So there's this thing going on with Eugene and Katrina trying to figure out if they should take him in as a halfway house guardians thing. Wooten becomes the special guest at a comic convention, and Penny goes with him. And they see Jules there, Connie's half-sister. And then also there's this thing with Matthew and Olivia and Wit. And stuff about Miss What's-Her-Name coming in, the lady.
Miss Adelaide.
Miss Adelaide. And the family stuff. And then they say a lot of things without saying anything at all. And then that scene ends.
Yeah.
I'll get into that later. At the end I was just just say it! But they didn't, so I'm okay.
I know.
And also Connie finds a skeleton key, which I'm looking forward to finding out what's up with that, in her mom's house, and her and Penny are redecorating, so that's what happened in the episode.
There was a lot of stuff going on. Oh my goodness, There's
so many things, except for the thing I have to, commend them the best on, is there were so many things going on in this episode, and it didn't feel cluttered.
It was crazy. I was when I looked back on it, when I came to writing my predictions for next episode, I'm okay, I just looked through my notes again just to make a list of all the different plot lines here, and it's
But aren't I right, though? It didn't feel cluttered?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, that is something you really have to commend, because it's hard to have, like, 6 plots going on, but you're like, I can actually understand everything that's going on for the most part.
It wasn't all crazy rushed. I mean, we do have 14 episodes. They did say that, you know, even with 12 episodes, that they still felt the second half of it was rushed to take care of everything.
And
I think we can
know why. There's so much stuff going on.
Okay, let us take it from the top.
Also, something I have to give them more commendation on is that sometimes during Odyssey episodes, they kind of feel like they drag on sometimes, especially with some of the newer OAC episodes. But this one just, like, went through so fast, and I'm like, no, give me more. What?
That's because there's so much to cover, like...
Yeah, I know. And, it really felt like the past OAC episodes didn't exist, considering how much this tied into everything with the pilot and all that other stuff around last album. So I'm like, whoa, it's almost as the past 5 months didn't even happen. Not that I mind. Okay. Also, Matthew's new voice. Did you notice that
Victoria, just let us start.
Really slow?
Yes. Which makes sense, and I'll get to that in a minute, or 2, or 10. Okay, so the very beginning of the episode, parental warning!
I know!
Yes!
I was listening to it, I'm like, yes!
It's always a good thing. But I was still, like, really nervous as the episode was starting, because realizing, like, this is 58 now. How's it going to go? Because I obviously know Odyssey is not going to be really on the liberal side of things, like, to a super degree. And so what I'm really worried about the most is that it's going to come across as, like, unbelievably homophobic. That's what scares me the most, like, offensively so. I'm really worried about that it's... I think there are ways that they could handle the topic in which they don't necessarily say anything that's wrong, but they only look at certain points and not at other points. And as a result, it's like a live omission, and on the whole, it comes off very, like, hateful and stuff. That's what I was really scared about. So, as the episode starts, we have Connie working on June's house still, which I was happy that we're still continuing on with that thread, and I was thinking that makes sense, because in the album descriptions, they talked about stuff with Connie's family, so it makes sense that the setups from life expectancy aren't just going to die, that we're going to keep on going over theirs. And then it's happening! Buck adoption.
I know. And then Connie's talking to it, and she's like, we all know what's gonna happen. Katrina and Eugene are in adopt Buck. And then she's saying all this stuff. I'm like, Connie, stop reading my Odyssey fan fictions.
You know, it's funny because, to be honest, I didn't tell you about this, but back when the very first part of The Ties That Bind aired on the official podcast, I saw a post talking about Connie or Eugene and Katrina adopting Buck, and I was like, my eyes, it burns. So I knew it was a possible spoiler. I tried to convince myself that they weren't necessarily talking about what happened in the episode. Thank you so much. I was trying to convince myself that it was like, it's not necessarily that it happened in the episode, they could just been talking about it, but in the back of my mind, I knew that that was canon from the first episode, so I knew that was happening, so sadly, I couldn't have been surprised when it happened, but... I'm so happy! But we also got a callback to Never for Nothing with Juan Reyes, which is cool.
Yeah, I know, I heard him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the same guy!
Because I was like, it sounds familiar, and I was like...
I'm so happy that he appeared again, more stuff with the halfway house, because I find his character super interesting and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if he makes a reference to Never for Nothing and knowing Abuelita and stuff, I'm like, I will freak out.
I like how you call it Abuelita. That's funny.
Shut up.
And then Comic-Connellsville. And just the mention of it, we'll get to all that stuff later that I loved so much about that.
I just want to say really quickly, I have been to a convention. Devin has been to a convention. I don't know if you got this feeling too, but all the stuff they're going over, and they're saying, like, all these things, and people who haven't been to conventions are probably like, that sounds really bizarre and weird. Why would there be things like that? But when they're talking about all this stuff, I'm like, yes! this is a convention. This is a good description
at first
of a
I was like, wow, I'm really surprised that they're capturing it so well. And then I remembered that a lot of the main actors on Odyssey end up at major cons, including SDCC every year. Like Townsend Coleman and Katie Lee both are quite often at SDCC with their own booths. So it makes sense. You know, they definitely have a lot of reference there for what goes on. Already in the episode, I was like, there's so many plotline setups. You can tell this is the first episode of a big arc because they're starting to weave all their little webs. It's like the GRC part 1 all over again. It was
such a good introduction. Like, by the end of the episode, I'm like, I am Mar. And I'm like, it's so good.
It really did feel a lot like part 1 of the Green Ring Conspiracy, where you have, like, the mentions for Uncle Archie's carnival, and then you have, like, Connie's taking the art class, and then you have, like, there's the plane, and there's the backpack, and all these different things, and the phone, the Appleberry.
Like, a lot happened in the first episode of Green Ring Conspiracy, but this feels like it's such a bigger scale that they're, like, working with.
Yeah.
And stuff, like... Oh my gosh, I am so excited.
Yeah, and then Connie's line came in where she's like, everyone knows that Buck will be released and come back to Odyssey, be adopted by Eugene and Katrina.
She's reading my fan fiction,
+1 to Connie for meta humor there. Also, like, how she's... What's like, are you calling us predictable? She's like, not predictable, just in character. I was like, interesting perspective, I thought.
And I was thinking, like, Connie, you've been reading too many forums about your show.
Whit worried me a little bit at the end of that scene there, because he almost seemed like, you know, I don't know, like he was a bit ill mentally, like memory loss or something like that. Just before I saw...
What are you talking about?
When he was doing the ice cream stalk and he couldn't seem to remember what was going on for like more than 5 seconds. Just for a minute there, but it happened.
I don't remember that part. There's a part where I zoned out because I was freaking out about Buck so much.
It was right after that, yes.
I don't think I heard that part.
I could be a little biased towards it because when I opened Facebook this morning, the very first post was from the AIOO trivia page on Facebook. It said, possible spoilers, I think Whit might be ill or something like that. So I had that line in my mind as I was going into the episode. But in the course of 30 seconds, Whit had about 3 incidents where he couldn't remember what someone said in the last 5 seconds when he was talking to Connie. Like, it was like he was very confused. So I don't know if it was almost like he was suffering from like Alzheimer's or dementia, like all of a sudden.
Oh my gosh, if they kill Whit off, I'm gonna be so sad.
So I don't know if they meant to do anything with that or not. I'll get to that later when I talk about my predictions. So we get to Juan and Eugene and Katrina's conversation. Any comments on that?
I can understand Eugene being kind of frazzled and stuff, because it is a big thing to take on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because for a couple seconds I'm like, what's his deal? He's supposed to take Buck in and be like, no, we're a family. But I'm like, wait, this is supposed to be realistic. I'm like, yeah.
That's what I wanted to say about this scene, that I really liked it, and I'm glad you thought the same thing. Because it would be really easy, and I'm sure in a lot of people's minds, it's like, you know, Buck will be released, and he's all good now, and they'll be like, yes, we'll adopt you, and then there'll be one big happy family forever. But that, as you said, that's not realistic, and Eugene's hesitance, because this really is like a very big, life-changing process, and it's not that easy. I was really glad that they didn't treat the halfway house process as just like, we sign a form, presto changeo, there's new parents and all this stuff. It's a very complicated process, and it's emotional and time intensive, and it requires a lot of serious thought.
Like we know lots of people who have foster kids.
So
and it is a real process. Like, you have to go through a lot of stuff.
So that's why I was really glad that they did that justice thus far here.
Yeah.
And then possibly the most unexpected, one of the most unexpected moments of this episode, there's probably a bunch. Connie and Penny are cleaning out June's attic, and they find a mystery skeleton key.
I know! I was like listening on like Once Upon a Time crossover.
I was like, a mystery key is one thing. It's like, okay, that's weird, but a skeleton key too? I was like, was June a secret agent? Did she work for the NSA?
I'm
she
still
really
not completely sure what skeleton key means.
It's like
Is it just like a key that opens a bunch of doors?
Yeah, it's a key that you use for lockpicking, that you use in combination with lockpicking locks to be able to open a variety of locks, usually.
Okay.
Or a key that can open a lot of locks. There's a couple
Every time I hear the word skeleton key,
think of
I
Regina.
think of Regina's keys from Once Upon a Time.
Yes, and it's the
like
same.
the apple on it.
Yeah, same
stuff,
idea, except
the
they made like a
skulls.
pun there, because they actually did have skulls on those keys. But yeah, I was like, was June a secret agent? Did she work for the NSA? Is she really
Maybe
alive?
Jason has been hiding out in their attic.
Could June be alive? Oh, I guess there was also the fact that Jason did have an estate sale for June's house. But shush. What if June is like actually secretly alive somehow, and there's like this whole, like, dear goodness, that would be the biggest plot twist in the history of the show. How would that fit into...
Do you have any idea how hard I would be crying if they brought June back? Because I'd be like, no, I'm gonna put you in a box and I want to protect you so nothing bad happens to you again.
How would that affect Connie's relationship with Mitch retrospectively if it turns out that June was like a secret agent all along? What if she knew that Mitch was like an agent? What if they were like working together the whole time?
I think you need to go sit down and
I know, I mean, obviously
cool off
that
a
would be
bit.
extremely out of place and jumping the shark if it turned out most of that stuff was true, so I hope that
Mitch
doesn't
is
actually
coming
happen.
back, guys! Aren't you glad?
Mitch was June all along!
No.
Disturbing thoughts. Okay, as you were saying, that guy is a fantastic voice match for Matthew.
I know,
Now,
I was listening to it, and, like, my first, like, he said one word, and I'm like, pause, and I'm like, something's different, and I'm like, oh, right, different voice actor, and then I thought it was Riley, like, Riley's VA, and I saw somewhere on Facebook after I listened to it, like, that guy sounds just like Riley, and I'm like, I know, like, I flipped out. I was so angry when I heard his VA, but that's only because I thought he was Riley. So I went right to Odyssey Wiki. I was still listening to the episode while I did this, and I checked for Riley's VA, and then it said, like, he's only been as Riley. I'm like, well, maybe they don't have the other stuff yet. And so then I went to Matthew's VAs, and I checked everything. I cross-referenced my sources, and it is not the same person, so that means we do have the possibility of getting more Riley episodes.
We would have the possibility anyways, but... So, yeah, I heard his voice, and
well, if it was, like...
I see what you mean.
If Riley's VA became
Matthew, they would be able to have both of them.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
it's just like how What's-Her-Name from the Kidsborough episodes
Jill
became Olivia, so she hasn't been in any more episodes.
That's true. That is a good point. I see what you mean. But, yeah, as soon as I heard his voice, after a couple lines, I paused it as well. And, I mean, AIOO Wiki...
I didn't actually pause it. I just, like, mentally paused.
AIOO Wiki wasn't... Well, it was already open, because that's how I was listening to the episode. But I opened the thing for the episode to see if this was actually the new Matthew, or whether that was still Zach Callison, but his voice was still changing or not. Because they sounded so similar. And, like you said, you could tell he was speaking really, like, low and subdued. So I'm guessing he sounds more like Matthew when he's like more in those undertones, because he was definitely talking like that the whole time, and it would have stood out otherwise if you didn't realize it was a different VA. So my guess is he's trying to start out like that and, you know, connect his voice to Matthew more, and then he'll be able to have more range of motion and stuff once we get used to his voice and the subtle differences from Zach's.
Yeah. So I think that jumps us into
Comic-Con.
the secret project thing. Sorry, I just want to talk about the secret project, because I'm like, it's a train, and they're like, oh, that's not a big deal, but they say that about tons of things, so I'm like, no, there has to be something more to this train. Like, maybe they're trying to do a renovation on the train sets or something, but maybe it's something bigger. I know I probably sound stupid for saying this, but there's so many things in Odyssey where it's like, oh, that's not a big deal, and it turns out to be a big deal. So.
Well, yeah, and I wrote about that in my predictions, because not only that, but in the last album-long saga in the Green Ring Conspiracy, we literally had that exact same thing with a train set that Matthew was working on.
Like,
with
they
the
even
Barrymore
pointed
line.
that out in the show. They're like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Shut up. And
Who
then
knows
later
that?
it's
Why
just
would
like,
anyone know that?
What?
That's what I said. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They had the Barrymore line thing in Green Ring Conspiracy. So obviously when I heard that, I was like, is this going to be something bigger?
And I was like, trains!
I don't know. So
I like trains.
I like trains. To move on to Comic Connellsville, cosplay is not optional, Wooten. You shush
Yeah, I
your
know.
face.
I was listening to that, and I'm like,
shame. Okay, I know.
No.
Wooten was talking about all these different comic book superheroes and stuff, and I'm like, there's probably a bunch of jokes in here that I don't get. But then he made that joke about pin tweaks, and I just died. That was the best
I didn't
thing.
get that one because I didn't hear the first part. Because he kind of said it fast. So what did he say?
He was talking about, like, there's this person, and they made this this sitcom that ran for a while about a bowling alley, and it was called Pin Tweaks. And Penny said something about, like, I don't get it. Because Pin Tweaks instead of Twin Peaks. Because it's Kimmy Robertson.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, of course, makes sense, because Twin Peaks is huge in, like, nerd culture and stuff, from what I've seen. Like it's a very famous show and
I'm
stuff.
guessing that's a show that Kimmy was one of the main characters.
Yeah, it was like one of the original sitcoms in the modern sense. Extremely famous show, and like I said, very huge in nerd culture, and she was one of the main characters. That was her breakout role. So
okay.
Yeah, it made me laugh.
Also, Wooten's talking about all these superheroes, and I'm like, some of these sound like really, really lame. But then I paused, and Devin knows what I'm gonna say. A while back, lots of you probably know who Watch Mojo is. They're a popular channel on YouTube. They do like lots of top 10 lists and stuff. We can link it underneath. Well, Devin
no, I think that's fine.
Okay, never mind. So, it was like the top 10 worst supervillains list, and they had things, these are actual things, like Polka Dot Man. He does crimes that have to do with circles, and then he leaves like polka dot paint trails behind him. And there's also Ladder Man. He goes on ladders, and I think that's it. And there's Stilts Man. He has stilts. That's pretty much all he does. These are all superheroes. I can't remember if these are DC ones or Marvel ones, or supervillains, sorry. But
Time
yeah, and
Man.
there's also Rainbow Man. He had a costume with rainbows on it.
I think they get the
that
point,
was his
Victoria.
thing. It was, wow. Stilts Man and Ladder Man were my favorite.
So, Hadley Bassett. Interesting. I wasn't expecting a new non-nuclear family member for Wooten, but then again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the others can't appear, but it sounds like this thing isn't going to relate back to the Bassett family in a larger capacity, so we're probably not going to be hearing from Winston or Wellington or Wooten's mother then.
Too bad. Do they mention a Hadley in the episode?
No.
I don't think they did. That's too bad. I was thinking, I don't remember that name, but it'd be cool if they took a name from the episode, and I wonder if Hadley was at the family reunion.
I don't know. So, second to last scene, and the one that was in the episode description. The episode description mentioned that Miss Adelaide was the one to tell Whit about the festival, and so as soon as I heard her, I was like, oh boy, here we go, gay time. So, as soon as she started talking and Whit started talking, I was like, it seems like they're a little hesitant to drop the words gay or homosexual here.
Yeah, I know. I'm listening to the whole conversation. I'm like, just say it. Just say it. Just say it. And at the end, I'm like, okay, then.
It's not like you're saying the F word, you know? These are very clear words.
Yeah, do you like my description of the episode where I said they said a lot of things without saying anything at
I know.
all? I think that's the best way to describe that conversation that went down.
I mean, at the beginning, it was kind of like she was saying things and Whit was questioning her and stuff like that. So I was like, hopefully...
Which is fine.
Yeah, I was like, hopefully they're not saying anything now, because this is just kind of like the build-up for Whit's line of questioning. But then it didn't. So I was like, if this carries on for 14 episodes, it's going to get very irritating if they keep on dancing around.
Also, I was thinking, like, how many people are there that didn't actually know what they were talking about because they never actually said the specific words?
I know. If you want to teach
people
something...
Like, there could be, like, kids and they're listening. They're like, I wonder what they're gonna say and stuff. And then other people listening and they're like, just say it.
How do they expect to teach people stuff if they're not using to use the words? It's not a dirty word, guys. Come on.
My guess is they have to at least say it by the next episode.
They better. Okay.
I think Olivia had a rather realistic,
yeah, I'm gonna
like normal, I don't know, just run-of-the-mill reaction.
Yeah, after my point, first I was thinking about Wit said, I believe we should be courteous and respectful of all. So just from the first episode, I'm like, okay, right off the bat, at least that's already way better than a huge portion of the Christian community treats the LGBTQA plus community. So I'd say that in the first 10 seconds of this debacle, we're off to a good start, at least, because, you know, I will never group Westboro Baptist Church in with any part of Christianity, obviously, but even apart from that, there's still like such a huge part of the Christian community which is so hateful and abusive towards the queer community. So just in that already, believing that we should be courteous and respectful of all is already a good start right off the bat. But like you said, Olivia disagrees with Wit. And this will be very interesting indeed. I think that's the most interesting thing to come out of that plot line so far, by far, is that where that's going to go.
I didn't really pay that much heed to the episode description. I mean, I read it, but I kind of read it without reading anything, like actually paying attention.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize it was Miss Adelaide till Olivia actually said Miss Adelaide. I'm like, oh, it was Miss Adelaide. I haven't heard from her in a while.
And then the last scene comes in, and Jules.
Yeah, I know.
Jules.
I'm listening. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't care. It's Jules. And I'm like, oh my gosh. She has that dorky side that everyone has deep down inside. I'm like, at first she seemed like, I don't know, a relatable character to like, I don't know, some people. But now she's like a relatable character to everyone.
Or at least
also,
to us.
Yeah, us. I don't know, I
We
find her
are
relatable.
everyone. Yes.
Yeah, we are everyone. So I think it's interesting that a character that they were originally going to have as a one-shot character became, like, so into the plot. I mean, like, I didn't actually think
I don't know if she was ever intended to be a one-shot character.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought she was, but that's just because of the contest stuff. I mean,
well,
I
figured Shona would be playing a one-time character, but I never thought that Jules Kendall would be a one-time character, if that's what you mean.
But that was Shona today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I listened to it, I'm like, oh, it's Shona! She's back! And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she's gonna be in, like, a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that, because, like, Connie and Penny are living in a bigger house and stuff,
I don't think they're going to adopt Jules.
So they have a free room. No, I'm not saying adopt.
Or
I'm
just
saying,
stay
like,
there for now.
I'm saying, like, maybe they should, like, I don't know, she should stay with them for a bit, because they're, like, a really good influence for her.
True.
And let's be honest, I'm not saying anything bad about Jules' mom, because we don't know anything about her, so I can't say anything bad about her other than the fact that she married Bill. So,
But so did June, so.
Yeah, so did June, but she's not really married to him anymore.
Well, neither is Jules' mom.
I know.
So.
Yeah, I know. So, anyway, I can't remember. Oh, yeah. So, I think that it'd be cool if Jules actually stayed with Connie and Penny. Like, they have that extra room, they have the attic, and she could stay in there. And I'm hoping that the skeleton key leads to secret tunnels underneath. So Connie's house will be like, gosh darn it, I can't go anywhere without, like, secret tunnels popping up.
Secret tunnel.
Like, Connie goes up into the attic, and then she sees, like, this floorboard out of place. And then
there's
she,
a telescope,
moves it,
and it shows her the treasure of Lamond.
Yeah, and then she, like, goes underneath the ground, and there's, like, a computer system. It's just like, hello, this is Mabel. And Connie's like, I knew they were always monitoring me.
When you said Mabel, I thought you were trying to make a Gravity Falls reference, because underground computer and stuff.
No.
What if there was a tunnel under the house, and it led to Wits End, and there was actually, like, a third tunnel from Wits End that they didn't know about, and it connected to Connie's house?
What if, remember that club that Margaret was against when she was running for mayor? And it's like the Old People Club or whatever it was
Old
called.
People Club?
What? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Damn it.
The town is being run by the Senior Citizens Center.
Shush. So what if June was like a secret member? And it actually is...
June was
'cause Will
part
and
of the
Tom are
old boys
like-
club, really.
Yes. No, it's not just boys.
Yeah, it is. That's the point. Margaret was against the patriarchy in the town.
Shush. No, you're ruining it. So what if it's like an actual...
There's a different secret
like
society.
a secret society, and they all have like tunnels leading under their houses to like this weird place, and it's under Comic Connellsville, and Jules is the leader. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, Victoria, I think we need to step back a couple of steps here.
You do too. So when Jules was asking Wooten those questions about like, oh, what's this and this, did you think like, oh my gosh, I bet she's gonna turn out to be that dude that has all those...
Jules, the perilous fen?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
I was thinking like, oh my gosh, if that's Jules, that's gonna be like so amazing.
Almost. I have a different prediction for that, but like I said, just a second. So this is very end of the episode. Jules pops up.
It's Bill, and Jules is his lackey.
It's not the context I expected Jules to appear, because we did think that she was probably going to come back because we heard about Connie's family, so we figured Bill or Jules would come back. And I did see someone post last week, I think, someone posted a question on Shona's Facebook page asking her how many episodes she's recorded now altogether. So I did think, yeah, she's probably in 58 then. I'm glad that they kept the Wilbur joke running with Wooten, because when they were calling Jules over to them, I was saying like, please say Peggy, yeah. I was like, please say Peggy and Wilbur, Peggy Wilbur. She's like, oh, Penny, and then Wooten was like, Wilbur, but you can call me Wooten. I was like, yeah, good continuity joke. I was happy with that. So, yeah, that is all the footnotes for the episode. So now overall.
Wait, the secret dude, I want to talk about him some more.
Okay.
So, I'm guessing, like, lots of people, content creators, would find this to be, like, really relatable. With, like, people always leaking things before they're supposed to come out and stuff.
Yeah, how timely.
I know that's not completely what they were talking about, but it kind of falls under the same category.
I found out something like that last night.
For...
I can't tell you.
What show?
Doctor Who.
Ah. So,
it's not something
like,
pertaining to the plot, but I promise not to tell. Shh,
okay.
Internet.
Oh, okay. And so, yeah, what do you think?
Yes, I'll get to that in just a second. That's the second thing, because like I said,
okay.
For my...
I thought you were done with all your footnotes.
Well, I am, but then I got to the predictions. I made that part of my predictions for the next time.
Okay.
So, first I made a list of all the plot lines or potential plot lines. So I listed, 7 here. So we have Eugene, Katrina, and Buck, and the halfway house adoption stuff. Wooten's new project announcement, and the perilous pen in Comic Connellsville. Wit possibly maybe being ill. I'm not entirely sure if that was something or not.
We'll count that as a half one.
June's mysterious skeleton key in the attic. Wit versus the Pride Festival. Possibly Matthew and Wit's train project, maybe. And Jules reappearing in Odyssey.
So that'll be a half one too. So 6.
If you count those two as halves, yes. Jules reappearing in Odyssey. So my predictions for each one. And I guess I'll say stuff and then you can say what you think. So, number 1.
Oh, the skeleton key! You forgot the skeleton key.
I said that.
Oh, never mind.
Eugene and Katrina will accept and become Buck's halfway house, but it's going to be a lot more work for them than they expected. And
my guess is, I'm going to quote Malachi here, it will be, I forget the quote, there will be like more heartache before good stuff or something like that.
Good quotation there.
Thank you.
What I'm wondering about, and I don't know if this is just me looking into little details too closely, but that's what we do here. I wonder about Buck having a possible reaction to Wit's clash with the Pride Festival, because I remember someone commenting back when the GRC was coming out about how Katrina's talks with Buck about God didn't really talk about salvation and didn't really mention sin at all. But they were basically talking about God being love and loving and stuff, but they didn't have a lot more substance on the idea of salvation overall. So if Buck's idea of Christianity is just God being love and stuff, and he sees Whit and probably Eugene and Katrina by extension being opposed to a festival which is ostensibly about all types of love, then a lot of questions will be raised by that and could result in him rebelling against Eugene and Katrina in confusion. Also, I want to see what happens to Emily with Buck's return, kind of like the homecoming, which would continue on with all the Richard and Lucy parallels that they had in 53.
No.
Okay.
No.
On the subject of Wooten and the Perilous Pen, I think that Hadley is the Perilous Pen, his cousin.
Oh, I like that theory.
Because he talks about how Hadley all the time, everything goes wrong and chaotic when Hadley's around, and
I like that theory. That is my new headcanon.
So
2 ends.
Yeah. What I think is going to happen is Wooten is going to tell Hadley what his announcement is in an attempt to like reconcile the relationship and show that he trusts Hadley and stuff.
Totally
He's going to be like, I trust you, so I'm going to tell you this, and then realize his mistake when
And then he's going to freak out, and he's going to go to Penny and be like, I didn't tell anyone what I do wrong. She's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, you totally had...
Hadley!
Hadley! And then use his superhero powers to like burst through the door and be like, Hadley, I trusted you. Not really, but yeah.
I wanted to pretend that I did. Yeah, so that's what I think is going to happen. I think that sounds really plausible. I'm really not sure about Whit being ill, but his confusion and forgetfulness in the scene, the way it was written, it did sound like it was deliberately written into the scene.
I'm going to listen to that scene
again.
Yeah,
I would listen to it again.
I'll comment on it in the next review if I remember to.
I would think it was nothing except, I don't know, there was something about the way that the lines were written that made it sound like it was deliberately supposed to be noticed. Like, and I know people have talked for a very long time about what would happen if Whit died or phased out of the show in some capacity or another. And I'm not saying that's what would be happening here, if at all anything is happening here. But just on the subject, many people think it's impossible, but we always have to remember Whit did indeed leave the show for quite a while back in the day.
That's something I don't understand. They're like, we can never have Eugene or Whit out of the show. I'm like, they have been out of the show for multiple consecutive albums.
Yeah, they were both gone for years,
okay.
So there was they each...
Connie, I'm not so sure, because she's been around
had their
for a
own
long time.
episodes exclusively about the fact that they were not irreplaceable. So
yeah, and Eugene
back
was
to
going to leave
for
again
Eugene.
With Leonard and Everett.
Exactly.
Speaking of Everett, I want, if Eugene and Katrina adopt Buck, I went on a car drive with my dad and I was thinking about this a bit. I want Everett, because Everett would now be an uncle. Think about that. He is
uncle
and
to
think
Buck.
About how it's been a while since he's been in Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
So he's older and he might be around the same age as Buck, just a couple years younger. And I would love to see some uncle-nephew bonding between them, because that would be like the best.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Everett was raised by a crime lord, so I'm sure they have a lot in common.
They can have like totally relatable things, and then they can
Which
go
is
to
terrible,
like,
of course,
Comic-Con together and be like, we're buddies, and it will be amazing.
Those are not the sort of things you should be bonding over, but I thought you were going to
It's a start.
Something about Everett and Jules getting together.
It's like, oh, we need an icebreaker. Oh, your guardian was like wanted and stuff. Mine was too. They're both in jail. Let's bond over that.
Yeah. I thought
need some common ground to get the relationship started.
I thought you were going to say that Jules and Everett should get together. That would make Connie and Eugene in-laws. Also,
I think that Jules and Buck would get along really well.
I think so.
Because they both have kind of like a darkish, realistic view on life.
Yeah, but Buck is a very charming person. And,
yeah, I know, but, well, Jules needs someone to charm her, let's all be honest. But I think that, like, because of the background Buck grew up with, like, the harsher background, and Jules, by the looks of it, didn't really have a great childhood growing up. Or at least a very darkish kind of childhood set on her. I think that, like, all the love and support that Buck is getting, he would be able to show to Jules, like, maybe if Connie imagine a scene where Connie couldn't get through to Jules, and then Buck just had a argument with like Eugene or something like that. So he's like walking down the street, and then they just like see each other, and they just start talking, and they get along, and they're able to like talk their issues out with each other. Like, wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's favorite contest winner and everyone's favorite charming country dude
Heartthrob.
just jamming together. It'd be awesome.
Okay, so to come back to the prediction, so if there is anything wrong with it, I don't know, I'm doubtful it would have a significant effect on the whole Pride Festival thing, but I suppose it's not out of the question. I really don't know what to think about June's key. It sounded like it's a setup for some grand mystery, but I don't really know how. I'd be very surprised.
And if it's mystery, Emily's probably going to be involved somehow.
I would be very surprised if they turned June into some secret agent or something like that, especially so soon after her death, and it would be very out of place, I think. So I don't think that's where this is going. It's probably going to be a mystery of a much smaller scale, and I'm sure Jules will tie into it somehow, but I don't know how. On the other hand...
maybe it's Jules' key.
On the other hand, the album 58 description said that the season would encompass a battle for the very heart of Odyssey, and unless it meant that in a moral sense, and it was talking about the Pride Festival and being really sensationalistic about the idea that a Pride Festival in Odyssey would destroy life and marriage as we know it and turn everyone gay, then this key is the only thing I can see at this moment that would conceivably...
I was just thinking back on our original video when we read the description, we got to that part where like Blackguard's gay, he's gonna take over Odyssey. Yeah.
So this key is the only thing I can see at the moment that would conceivably lead down that kind of path. that would create that kind of thing. The Pride Parade itself seems to be the central idea of this album, or at least it's one of the main ones. There's obviously going to be a lot of focus over it and a lot of clash over it. People are going to throw a lot of hate at Whit, probably call for his resignation and the closure of Whit's End.
It's a good thing Margaret's not still around.
What interests me way more...
She would just get him.
What interests me way more is Olivia, because she's coming from a Christian background, but she very clearly disagrees with Whit, and she doesn't know how to handle it. She didn't even know how to put it into words there. So,
and Matthew doesn't. I find that interesting too.
She's probably never disagreed with Whit in any aspect of Christian life before, and this is great for the listeners because it shows an extremely common situation for young Christians through Olivia. So I really look forward to see where this goes, and hopefully it's handled well. Really not sure, like we said before, if anything significant is going to come out of the train thing, but then again, like I said, in the last saga, we had Matthew working on a train project that turned out to be...
My guess is if anything comes from
MacGyver
that,
thing.
It's going to come from, like, the very end.
Just like the Barrymore track.
Like, come back. I'm guessing that Matthew's going to be doing, like, train things for the first couple episodes.
I'm sure it'll tie in, but not as an independent plot line.
Yeah. Like, it's going to be very small on the scale of things.
It won't be its own plot line, but it'll tie into something else later. And
I was a little bit disappointed that Buck wasn't in the episode, but I'm like, I know we have to do other things, but I really hope he's going to be in the second episode. But, like, how did the first episode of Green Ring end? Was that with them saying, like, oh, you're Monty's in Odyssey? Like, he didn't actually... Yeah. So, I think, from my memory, Monty didn't actually talk until episode 3.
Or 3.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Because, like, episode 2, I think it was, ended with Whit being like, Monty's in my house! I want him out of here, the scallywag! So that episode 3 is like, Monty's here now 3. And he's talking around. So I'm thinking that Buck is going to finally appear in episode 3.
Maybe. I'm not sure how many parallels we can draw between the GRC.
I don't know, maybe it's just my episode 10 Red versus Blue radar.
That's probably it.
Saying, like, there has to be things between seasons that parallel.
That is probably it. So, and then lastly, I really have no idea what to think about Jules' involvement here. She'll probably tie into the mystery with June's key. Maybe something to do with Wilbur and Penny being at the convention. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Just wink to the audience right there.
I really don't know what she's doing here. So overall, that's our predictions from the end of the first episode. Wow, that took a long time to do. How long have you been recording?
Why do I have
43 minutes.
That Bill might not know that I almost just said Shona, that Jules
I know, I keep on calling
Shona
Shona now. It is interesting that she came by herself. I thought that was odd.
Because I can understand Bill forgetting to phone Connie, because he does that all the time. But, like, I don't know, it just kind of seems weird. Like, you think he would want someone to be looking after her, or her mom at least, because...
Unless he's like, she's going to Connellsville, Connie can look after her.
Yeah, and then he just forgets to phone Connie. I mean, like, I can see him doing something like that, but I also get the feeling that might be... I almost just called her Shona again. Jules came here without telling anyone. Like, she just took a taxi, a combination between a taxi and a cab.
She took one up from California to Ohio?
I don't know, but I don't know.
It'd be a very long
like
trip.
The owner
Took Bernard
of like
Eugene a long time to get there.
Hey, he's the owner of like airplanes and
What if
Odyssey newspaper for probably like a week because everyone keeps on buying it. And
what if she flew his private jet, company jet? What if she took that? Anyways, yeah, it is interesting that she came by herself. Also, like Wooten said, that such a big, sounds like a big grand prize contest would have Comet Connellsville as a grand prize. I don't know. So
I don't know. Maybe people coming from all over the place are going to Comic Connellsville. Maybe it's the biggest Comic Con.
Maybe it's the next SDCC. Who knows?
Yeah, we should go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
support us on Patreon, so we can go to Comic Connellsville.
I really hope that becomes an actual Odyssey convention now. Like, fans actually make a convention.
That would be cool.
Instead of calling it, like, Odyssey Con or something. Or
support us on Kickstarter to help us make...
Yeah, forget Patreon. We're going to start Comic Connellsville.
Yeah, we're going to start a Kickstarter to do Comic Connellsville.
In Canada.
Just like, mail your money to us. Trust us for this one.
Yeah, checks, personal checks, credit cards are acceptable too.
Bank account numbers,
unmarked bills, you know, of all different foreign
unmarked
courtesies.
checks.
If you want to reroute money through like the Cayman Islands, So I think that's everything for this part, and we've been talking.
Give us your money.
So let's switch this over. Yeah, we'll give you an extra hour in the ball pit and everything. This is not a scam. Just give us our 17K.
Okay.
I don't know how we got that far into the discussion without me thinking to make a DashCon joke. I'm almost ashamed of myself. Okay, time to review part 2. Go. And we're back. Here, done with part 1. 1 week has passed, and now we are moving on to review part 2. And so, here we go. Episode 752, The Ties That Bind, Part 2, written, of course, once again, by Mr. Paul McCusker. Starting off with... Oh, Victoria's summaries first, of course.
Yeah. So, lots of stuff happens in this, so I just kind of gave each plotline one sentence, and even then, it's super long. Okay, Ties That Bind, Part 2, episode summary. Connie asks Jason about the skeleton key, and Jason finds a lead, which ties it to an old trunk company. Also, Connie finds out that Jules is in Odyssey, and Jules is now staying with Connie. Wooten and Penny meet Wooten's cousin Hadley, who introduces them to a famous art collector, who is interested in buying some of the originals of Wooten's artwork at any price, and he's quite insistent. Jules is involved with some shady business with Vance, and meanwhile, Eugene and Katrina, after lots of thought and prayer, decide to take in Buck. Also, Jason learns about a mysterious ghost town.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, I did too, until I listened to it again.
Anything about the super gay party?
Oh, I knew I forgot something.
Actually, the main plot line of the album.
Yeah, the main plot line.
Whit talks to Matthew. Tells him the story
Whit
about
talks
Benz.
to Matthew
That's the gist
about it.
Benz.
And then he decides to talk to Olivia, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, to take it from the top, more parental warnings. I know it'll be in front of every episode, but what a good way to start the episode. And not only that, but a parental warning followed by a nice long previously on Is the best
I
way to
know!
start.
I know.
Oh,
Like,
I love previously
I love
ons.
how it with Odyssey, like with a normal TV show, you get like a parental warning on certain TV shows, and you're like, oh, just get the parental warning over with. These are so boring. It takes like a minute to sit through them. But Odyssey fans, well, it feels like a minute. With Odyssey fans, you like hear the warning thing, and you just get all excited, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing.
So, I guess Harlow must have a collection of vintage collector's lunchboxes then, which is an interesting piece of continuity from That's a Wrap.
Yeah, I know.
Also...
Well, he doesn't have his Get Smart one anymore.
True.
I find it interesting that I didn't know what Get Smart was when I first heard that episode, and then when I finally found out what Get Smart was, and I heard that one again, I'm like, oh, I know what that is!
What a moment.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Also, more continuity in Harlow's love of the Rifleman series, which I believe first came from The Case of the Candid Camera, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We mentioned it before.
Continuity makes me smile.
Yes.
Makes my heart smile.
Warms my heart. It is good to have Jason continuing on with his J&J role. I'm really glad that even though Jack and Joanne have left the show, their legacy is going to carry on and on through that.
I know.
It's exciting.
But didn't Connie say, like, oh, they're out of town, so they can't run the shop this week?
Yeah,
and
they
I'm
did.
Like,
no, she didn't say this week. I mean, it was long-term,
like
but she did make it sound non-permanent, which I found interesting.
Yeah, I know. I'm listening to it, and I'm
I
like,
guess they're
but
keeping their
doesn't
options open.
Jason own the shop now?
Well, he doesn't own it. He's managing it for them.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, they did
starting
make
to
it
get
sound
confused.
non-permanent, and it could be, Dave Arnold trying to keep options open.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In case Jason wants to become a spy again. How many times has it been? Like 10?
Yeah.
Like every single time he appears and he has like a spy plotline. Anytime there's like any big intrigue and stuff and he's involved other than Novacom, I'm pretty sure he becomes a spy again, so he becomes a spy on and off like 50 times. It's like being an agent is his girlfriend and he just can't commit, but then he finally does and they just keep on breaking up and getting back together.
It's a very
again.
unhealthy relationship that he has with the National Security Agency.
Yeah.
And speaking of things happening again and again, the project with Whit and Matthew is being mentioned again, which does up the probability of it being implicit in something larger.
If it isn't, I'm gonna be kind of sad.
That would be odd. It's not Paul's style.
Yeah.
I didn't expect Whit to start talking about marital equality in depth so early on in the album. I really love, as I said before, I love that they're showing Olivia and Matthew's perspective in all of this because that's probably the most relevant here given the listening demographic, so it's very important.
Yeah.
As Whit started, I was like, you better not say something about, because he's like, I really love fountain pens. I'm like, you better not say something about marrying fountain pens, otherwise I'm going to be really irritated.
I thought he was going to say something like that.
Such an utterly stupid straw man argument.
I like fountain pens, but I'm not going to marry them. But he didn't say that, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness.
I was like, if you make such a stupid straw man argument, oh my goodness, I'm going to be so angry. But, he
didn't say that.
No, he did not. He gave his anecdote, and it was actually pretty fascinating. I will have to think on that one. I think that a point should be made in here, and I doubt it will, but I think it should be made about the dichotomy between biblical marriage in a church setting and the legal marriage relationship with reference to the government. I think it's a very important difference to recognize, especially when talking about marriage equality, which is, that dichotomy is the reason why I personally am in favor of marital equality legally, like legalizing gay marriage in the States as a legal ceremony, even though I recognize that it is not something within the church that should be happening. Because there is a difference. Even though the marriage ceremony is something which originated with God and the Bible, you also have to recognize that it is something which is a legal, non-religious ceremony with reference to the government, and that the United States, I can't say Canada because we do have marital equality here. In the States, it is not a religious state. There's freedom of religion, which means that you can't let someone not do something solely for the reason that it goes against someone's religion. And that's really the only reason that people oppose gay marriage, which is why I'm in favor of legal marriage equality. It's the same thing as saying, you can't be a Muslim, that's basically, that would be the exact same thing, saying you're not allowed to be a Muslim in the States because it goes against the Bible. And it would be the exact same reasons. Like, the freedom of marriage and freedom of religion really go along the exact same threads. So because we do, to some degree, we do have the legal right to sin, even if we have the responsibility not to, right? Like, I believe that committing adultery is a sin, but I think that we should have the legal right to be able to do it, or we have the right to be able to lie about whether or not, brush my teeth before bed, or I have the right to be whatever religion I want to be. From a Christian perspective, I have the things I'm supposed to do, but we still have, the things that we're legally allowed to do. There are things which are wrong and we're not allowed to do for obvious reasons, like murder people, but there are things which are wrong but we still have the ability to do, and I believe that should be in that category. Of course, my personal views do not necessarily reflect the views of Victoria or this podcast in general, or obviously focus on the family. That is my personal views on the thing. So I think it would be amazing if we could recognize the difference between biblical proper marriage and a legal marriage ceremony, but I really don't think that's going to be happening in this series, sadly. But it would be nice if I hope that throughout this series that we actually get some actual meaty back and forth from both sides, from Miss Adelaide and the festival, and from Wit and Wit's End.
At this rate that they're going with that storyline, that's probably going to happen sooner than later.
Yes, although who knows how much actual meat there will be, because I found out on Tumblr this last week that apparently, as we were complaining last time, that they never actually said the words gay, lesbian, homosexual, pansexual, anything, LGBTQIA+, that apparently none of those words are ever mentioned in the entire 14-part series. Which makes me really irritated, because how can you expect to teach kids about things when you're not going to tell them what you're teaching them about? If they're talking about something where the words were actually like bad words or something more mature, I would understand that. But the word, gay is not a swear word. You could say it on the radio. Oh my goodness. Kids, if you're going to try and teach kids something, you need to tell them what you're teaching them about.
Yeah, it also comes back to what I said in the last episode review, for part 1. There are going to be kids who aren't going to know what they're talking about because they're not saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll probably easily figure it out because they're basically literally all but saying it. But there might actually be some people who don't figure out what they're talking about.
Oh, I should add on to my point of what I was saying about my opinion. I do agree with Wit in his stance about hanging the poster, because while I do support people's ability to have a gay marriage, I also believe that, while we can support people's right to commit sin or not, that we cannot celebrate the act of sinning, obviously. So while I support gay rights, I do not, I couldn't participate in gay pride, because that's celebrating sin, not the ability to have free will in that decision. So I do agree with Wit on not hanging the poster, though.
I'm with Wit on his opinions and ideals. That's all I have to say about that. Yeah.
All right. To move to a slightly lighter topic, we move to comic.
Yeah. I don't talk about heavy things really at all.
Sorry.
So I'm just going to let Devin talk about the majority of
It's a topic which I have very personal interest in, and I spent a lot of time reading about, so I'm glad that this album has given us a chance to be able to talk about it more, because it's something that I like talking about with other Christians and discussing. Actually, one of my friends from Castlegar, who's a Christian, posted something the other day just about it, and which I thought was a very good point and sums up what I was saying about, how it's a freedom of religion issue, on saying that, you can't have a gay marriage just because it's against my religion. It's like saying that you can't eat a cookie because I'm on a diet. Which is not a perfect argument, but it is pretty close to essentially what I was saying, right? You can't do this because it breaks my rules, and the only reason I'm saying you can't do it is because it goes against my rules, which don't apply to you. So, anyways, Comic Connellsville, we get a whole schwack ton of Doctor Who references, which was like, I missed them
on the first listen through until Devin brought it up, and fortunately, I decided I had to listen to the episode again anyway, because I wasn't really paying that much attention, and when I did, I was like, Doctor Who out the wazoo, this is amazing.
I wrote down a bunch of words on my notes, but I'm going to go to Facebook, because I typed out the entire quote here, because I was just so excited. You missed
some things. Hey, I want to know, was I right?
And going, and going. Because I heard, like, Doctor Hoover, and I was like, what? And then he just kept making more references. Sorry, what were you saying?
Was I right about that thing when I said there was an extra scene?
Oh, I didn't get a chance to listen to.
Oh.
So if there is, we will discuss it next time on part 3.
Never mind. Oh, yeah, I mentioned, I went back and I listened to part 1. I went back and I listened to the beginning scene, part 1. Because Devin and I were having a discussion about wit.
Ah, yes, from last time. It's true.
From last time, I said I'd bring it up this time really briefly. I agree with what Devin said last time. Something
you have to talk about what he's talking about.
Wit kept on talking about things and then forgetting what he was talking about right after, in the first scene of the episode. And then Connie's like, Whit, are you feeling okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. And I was thinking, like, this thought came into my head. I was like, oh, it's because he's busy in thought about, like, the Pride Parade or whatever.
But that hadn't happened yet.
No, that hasn't happened yet. And then I'm like, something is very, very wrong.
Yes.
Because, like, I don't know, I guess someone could argue, like, oh, maybe he's in detailed thought thinking about his project with Matthew because something went wrong or something. Like, no, it's not like a small thing. It's, I don't know.
It does seem very odd.
Yeah,
you guys just saw our review for part 1. Victoria couldn't remember it, so we couldn't verify it, but then she went and listened to it right after we finished our last recording.
That part,
and she was like, you were definitely right. Something
yeah,
was
right
weird
after I
Wit.
listened to it, I messaged Devin. I'm like, okay, something is up.
Okay.
It kind of felt like he was worried about, like, I don't know why, but I was thinking in scenes where he's, like, really worried about, like, Jason or Monty or something like that. It felt like one of those scenes, but we only had Wit side of it, so we had no idea what was going on.
It was like either he was very distracted or almost like he didn't know where he was kind of thing. I don't know.
I think it was distracted, but anyway.
Anyways, once again, to a lighter topic at Comic Connellsville. So, from Wooten to Penny, Wooten goes, whoa, look at that new Doctor Hoover I'll count the references. Oh, look at that Doctor Hoover display. He's wearing a new coat.
Wait, send me the thing. I'll read Penny's part.
I was going to say that. Okay. Just scroll down like 4 posts. That's there.
We're going to do a musical, or not musical theater. We're going to do, like, theater
Reader's
for you guys.
Theater.
Yeah, Reader's Theater. Okay, go, Devin.
Whoa, look at that new Doctor Hoover display. Oh, he's wearing a new coat, and those must be the new dialectical robots.
They look like giant salt shakers.
I know. Is that his new time machine?
A garden shed?
It's beautiful.
I'm sorry, Wooten. I can't fix my eyes on anything.
Don't blink. That was like 6 references right there.
He was talking about garden gnomes when he said don't blink. You cut out some of the conversation.
No, that was the next line.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
Yeah. So
that was my Penny impersonation.
Yeah, I was just blown away. I was like, oh gosh, Paul McCusker, you're beautiful. I guess Wooten is a confirmed Whovian then, carrying on from For the Birds when he made that the Doctor What joke about about his owl. And the fact that he made that many, like that he made the don't blink joke and stuff, confirms that Wooten is a Whovian. Also, nice meta joke there with, what series is he from? Odyssey. I mean, it does actually make sense in the context of...
Did they mean, like, the Iliad Odyssey?
No, because she was pointing it at the gnome and she asked, but it was J, and so Wooten was like, Odyssey.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought, because when I heard like, what series is he from? I heard, like, Odyssey, and I'm like, And I'm like, I'm confused. Are they talking about the Iliad?
No,
or
no,
are they
because she didn't realize that she was...
I couldn't imagine someone cosplaying a character from the Iliad at a convention.
In a Comic-Con?
Because no one would know who they are.
Oh, lots of people would.
Well, I
There's
mean,
a lot
like...
of fans of the Odyssey and the Iliad. Anyways.
It doesn't really seem like something you'd cosplay.
She was talking about Jay. So, yeah, I mean, with Wooten's kind of humor, it does make sense in the context of the show that he would say he's from Odyssey, like as a joke, because it's Jay who is physically from the town of Odyssey, but it's still obviously fourth wall humor, and it made me laugh.
Oh yeah, Odyssey's the town. Okay.
Yeah.
I am so tired. I never thought about this. I was just thinking show-wise.
I know. I mean, obviously it was a show joke, but it still does make sense in the context of the show, technically. The line, I'm not here to make money, or if I am, I'm not doing a very good job of it. I was like, yeah, that's an understatement, being at a convention, right? The 3 things you bring to a con are good cosplay, water, and as much cash as you can physically carry. You spend a lot of money.
And also, like, a book for autographs.
Yeah, you spend a lot of money.
Hopefully a bag to carry all the stuff you buy, because...
Or all the money you bring that you're not going to be bringing home with you.
I mean, like, you bought a lot of stuff. I only bought, like...
QED.
I couldn't really find...
Then you can hold up your Keyblade.
It's over there.
Yeah.
I never actually really found anything I wanted at the convention I went to. I got, like, 3 keychains, and that was it. Because I went to a store... I went to Hastings before I went to the convention, and I got, like, a bunch of manga and a bunch of other stuff, and River Songs Journal for Devin.
I got the autograph, and I got the Keyblade, and I got the telescope cane, and I got a whole bunch of little miscellaneous things, like the buttons and stuff. Okay.
All my buttons.
Hugo Wells.
All my buttons.
Yeah. Hugo Wells really reminds me of the food critic from Ratatouille with his voice. Not sure exactly why, but
I don't trust him because I think he's going to pull a Grady's dad and try and, like,
I know, so Grady's
take it.
The whole highest stakes was written all over that in my mind.
Yeah. And also, I don't trust Hadley.
Yeah, I was like, what side of the Bassett family is Hadley from? Because he seems to fit in with the Bassetts about as well as Wooten does. And of course, that was answered afterwards.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, that's funny, because I was thinking, like, what side of the family are you from? I was thinking, like, they're probably not going to say it, though. And literally, right after I, like, thought that, they're like, Penny's like, oh, what side of the family are you from? And I'm like, what?
I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, Hadley is totally a VIP, and it's totally because he's the Perilous Pen. I was so right. I mean, he just happens to spill fruit punch on the shoes of the most famous art collector in the world, and then he brings up the fact that he's Wooten Bassett's cousin. This is a man who is accustomed to wheeling and dealing in information and manipulation.
Yeah, I'm thinking either he's the Perilous Pen or the art collector.
I don't think it's the other guy.
Can you imagine, Hadley, like... Yeah, I don't think, because with all his money and stuff, it'd be way easier to buy everything you want to find out. Mm-hmm. And the Perilous Pen doesn't really seem like someone who... No.
An art collector is not a stalker. Yeah. A world-famous art collector is not the person who's going to spend all their time on Reddit and Tumblr being like a famous blogger for spoilers for stuff. Yeah. That's Hadley's style. And he already knew Penny's last name, which was kind of creepy, and I don't know why. Yeah. Like, what has she done that he would know her for?
Maybe Wooten told him, like, oh, I'm gonna be with my friend Pennywise, and you can meet her. It seems a little weird that he dropped both names, though. Yeah. Like, normally you'd just be like, I'm gonna be with my friend, and then maybe mention their first name. Yeah. It'd be Connie, like, messaging, what was her friend from California, Pamela, and be like, oh, hey, come to Odyssey. I'm going to be with my friend Robert,
Robert E. Lee?
Something, yeah, Robert something Mitchell. What's Mitch's middle name?
We don't know.
Oh, I thought he had a middle name that they said. Anyway, like, it's just sounds weird.
Yeah. Okay, so... Jules knows Vance. That, I was like, oh dear, that is the worst kind of trouble to be happening.
Yeah. Wait, I want to go back to Hadley.
He's coming up again, don't worry.
Okay.
Like, how old is Jules again? She came all the way from California to
know.
Odyssey for some kind of scam. Like, when Vance talked about making money, I thought Vance was just taking pictures of bad cosplays to blackmail people with.
No, every single time Vance comes up, I'm like, okay, what are you getting my precious Jay into now, you horrible scumbag? Like, whenever Vance shows up, something bad is gonna happen. Mm-hmm. That's basically guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like, really, really bad. Like, think about everything he's gone through. Like, he stole the owl, and then he made Ryan go through all this weird stuff to try and get it back. He made Jay steal, like, a little kid's bike that was his birthday present. He made Jay, like, scam this elderly lady at a retirement home out of, like, all her money, basically. And all this other horrible stuff that hasn't been on screen. He also picked on Matthew for the Target of the Week thing. That episode was horrible, by the way.
Back when he was Jason Earls.
Oh, wait, that was a different person?
Remember?
Oh, right. I thought Jason Earls from Hannah Montana.
Yeah. First voice actor for Vance.
Yeah, for only one episode.
Yeah.
I still think it's funny. I figured out that he was Jason Earls before I actually heard it in the credits. I just heard his voice, and I'm like, I know.
I was like, is that?
And I was like, why
Jackson?
are you? I'm like, it's Jackson. Why aren't you there? Why are you here? It's really bizarre.
It was weird. I know. That was strange.
Because of that, I'm still not used.
51 was a weird and wild time.
Yeah, I know. But because of that, I'm still not used to Vance's voice.
Really? You've listened to Target of the Week that much?
No, I haven't. It's just like, I don't know why. For some reason, that voice just, like, stuck in my head like that is Vance, and then all the other stuff with Vance, and every single time I hear his voice, it always takes me, like, a little bit to realize who's actually talking, and it's weird.
I forgot to point out, this was true of last episode, but not the first half of this one. Giant Pandorica opens behind my head now, backdropping the recording.
New poster.
It's huge, it's beautiful, it's almost 15 square feet. It's an enormous poster, and I love it.
My Pandorica opens is over there. I don't know if it's on the screen. Yeah, it is.
How big is yours? I didn't know that you had a poster for it.
It's a little longer than the normal bottom length of a poster. And it's, like, I don't know, not very tall.
Anyways, as Victoria was saying, Bassett family world building. Cool.
He reminded me... Okay, I got so many, like, past Wooten episode vibes from, like, Wooten's storyline in this episode. Like, all the stuff with, like, Grady's dad, with, like, the art collector and stuff. And then, like, okay, Hadley really reminded me of Velma. Like, I'm like, he seems like he's in financial trouble, and he really wants to mooch off Wooten, kind of. Like, but he doesn't want to actually admit that he's in financial trouble, or he needs help for, like, money and stuff. Mm-hmm. But if he is the Perilous Pen, then that would explain. He'd be like, oh, I don't have a place to stay. You should let me stay at your house. That way he can, like, rummage through his house.
Exactly, yeah.
And
I also
poke his nose and stuff.
Noticed, because I started listening to, like, the first 5 minutes of the first episode again, and Wooten, it starts out with, like, Wooten bringing a whole bunch of his original sketches to Wits End to hang in the treasure room. So I don't know if that's going to be playing into Hugo Wells or anything. Anyways, Bassett family world building. I was like, this is super cool. Soon we're going to have a Bassett family tree, which is as detailed as the Meltzner-Walton one. Second Cousins Twice Removed is actually one
less...
What
about Wit's family tree?
Still not as detailed.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Second Cousins Twice Removed is actually one less generational gap between common ancestors than with Bernard and Eugene, who are third cousins twice removed. So Hadley and Wooten are actually more closely related. Yeah.
Well, I never really imagined Wooten and Eugene and Bernard being that closely related.
No, they're third cousins twice removed, and Hadley and Wooten are second cousins twice removed. So yeah, Hadley's gonna stay at Wooten's house. Don't let him find your secret room.
But now that you mentioned the drawings again, I'm really hoping that Hadley's gonna not, like, bring up the drawings, and then he's gonna be like, hey, Wooten, can I just see them? And then Wooten will be like, well, I don't really know, Hadley. And then Penny might be like, oh, they're not here right now, they're at Wit's End. And then I'll be like, oh, interesting, can you show me Wit's End? And then, like, call up Hugo and be like, have I got a deal for you? And be all Felix style, where you just want to get him to slip on a dollar bill and die. That is my favorite Tumblr post relating to Felix.
So, we then move forward back to the June Kendall skeleton key mystery. A 200-year-old chest manufacturer is great fodder for an old-fashioned mystery. So, who knows where that's going to go. And
do you think Jules is going to, like, help Connie with the mystery?
I don't know.
Like, it would be, if she did, it'd be, like, a pretty good bonding experience for the two of them.
I don't know. But you were 100% dead on correct about no one knowing that Jules went to the con.
Yeah, I know, when she said that, I'm like, oh, I was right!
Yeah. Face base. So, at first I was like, is there something wrong with sticking with Club Kid Chat from, 52? But then I was like, come to think of it, doesn't sound like the brand of social network that either Jules or Vance would be using.
Club Kid Chat, I'm pretty sure, was supposed to be a Club Penguin spoof.
Yeah.
So it'd be, like, more little, younger...
Yeah.
Kinda...
I saw that post pop up again when I was starting my downloads the other day, the picture from someone who got banned from Club Penguin for using a bad word because they said, let me tell you about Homestuck. Oh, man, I saw that. I was like, I forgot about that. That's so funny. Anyways, yeah, Facebase apparently is the new main social media network of the day. Jason, as Victoria brought up, new thing. I have no idea what this ghost town thing is about. It sounds... it just felt really random. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It felt so random. I actually kind of, like, zoned in and out of that conversation, like, 6 times, like... And I'm still not really sure what happened in it, even though I've listened to the episode twice.
It seemed really weird. I mean, I know this is only part 2 of 14, so new plot lines being introduced are more than fair game, but I don't know. It still felt really random. I guess we'll see. I don't know if it's going to tie into the other ones or not. So how long do you think
before Buck appears? I just want to ask you this before we...
I don't know. Probably, I'd say the next episode... 40% possibility that he will appear.
I'd say either he will
episode
appear...
4, I will say 75% possibility.
I think he'll at least be there by episode 4. I think if he's not going to be there in the next episode, then definitely episode 4. Like, he might... I was going to say he might appear in, like, the last scene or something like that with Eugene and Katrina, but then I realized, like, every single plot has one scene per episode because there's so much going on. So I guess that makes it more fair that I gave every plot in my summary 1 sentence. It's funny because I, like, wrote out the whole summary while I was listening to it, and then I'm like, okay, I have everything, and then because I remembered lots of it, and then I just, like, added stuff, and that's why it has, like, everything, and then at the end it says, like, also Jason learns about a mysterious ghost town. Just because I was like, oh man, I totally forgot about that. So it's a good thing I listened to the episode again. So were they, like, filming a movie in a ghost town or something like that?
I have no idea.
I am so confused by that. I thought it was like, we're filming a movie in a town, and there's a ghost town, but we're not filming in the ghost town, we're filming in the other town, and you don't want to go to the ghost town because it's a ghost town. And I'm like, then why would you even bring it up?
I was really confused, honestly. I guess we'll figure out what's going on.
I don't know what's going on.
When Eugene said that, when he said, like, well, conduct this argument by me saying what you think they'll say, and you say what I think I'll say.
Did you go like, oh no?
Yeah, I know.
He said that?
I heard Eugene saying what he thinks Katrina will say when it comes to Buck Oliver. It does not sound like it's going to make for good marital conduct.
Even without Buck, it's never gone well. Like, you go back to episodes like The Right Choice. I mean, they were both in lots of conflicts with the relationship.
The Right Choice is a pretty extreme case.
Yeah. But still,
I know, out of everything to do that for, Eugene trying to
I
say what he
know.
thinks Katrina's going to say about Buck Oliver is like, I was like, oh no, this won't end well.
Surprisingly, it went pretty well.
It went fantastic. I was like, yeah, Eugene is best husband. Buck.
Was that the only
How
scene
far
with
he has
Eugene
come.
in the episode, Devin?
Probably, I think so. How far
'Cause
Eugene has come.
There was one in the OAC, this was the one I wasn't sure, where he was talking to Whit about Buck and what he thought
What?
he should do.
In the OAC?
Yeah, and like the album version on the OAC of part 2. There was one scene where Eugene went into Whit's and he's like, Mr. Whitaker, what do you think I should do?
Okay,
and then
so that
Whit's
is
like,
an extra scene. So yeah, I will
talking
listen.
to him
I will listen
and-
to the full album versions for next time, and any scenes that we missed discussing, we will discuss next time when we talk about part 3. I will, if I find scenes that we haven't heard, I will send the timestamps.
But that is a new
to you.
scene. I was right about that, right?
Yes, I definitely haven't heard that.
Okay, because I listened to the radio version, and then I listened to the OAC version, and
If I
was
find,
like, Devin, man, you gotta listen to these versions.
if I find,
'Cause I think they're different.
If I find extra scenes more, I will send you the timestamps. I will also send you the episodes so that you can do all that and find the stuff.
I'm just gonna keep on listening to them on the OAC.
Yeah, that seems to be the best idea. Okay,
Yeah.
last point. So, like I said before, with the second episode done, the total number of LGBTQA plus terms used actually in this season is still at a whopping 0. And as I now know, it will remain a whopping 0 for the other 12 parts. Okay, you know what? We should probably, give ratings, like, as we go in couplets of episodes, right? We shouldn't wait till the end of the album.
'Cause... Yeah. Can I just bring up one last point?
Sure.
In regards to Jules?
Yes.
So I don't know about you, but it's looking like it's going to be, things considering how it's going, it's going to be a very similar plot line with her and Connie to what happened between Connie and Aubrey during Novacom. With Connie playing herself, Jules playing Aubrey, and Vance playing Erica.
They're gonna steal the imagination station.
Like, I'm just getting a lot of, like, in the first episode of, like, in the first part, just listening to it, I'm like, okay, Jules is acting a lot like Erica in this part. And just listening to the second part, I'm like, okay, she's acting a lot like Erica when she's talking with, like, Vance and all that stuff, and when she when she starts talking to Connie, it kind of sounded like a cross between Aubrey talking to Connie during Novacom when she was dealing with all those bad things, and
I love
Erica
Under
talking
the
to Connie.
Influence so much.
Am I right though?
I see
like, do you see what I mean?
I see the parallel. Yes.
Like, even she sounded a lot like Erica, like the way she talked and her voice a little bit.
They do have similarities character-wise, definitely. Okay, so ratings for the first 2 parts of 14.
Wait, I have one more question.
Yes.
So did Jules just, like, predict that she was going to stay with Connie, or did she, like, bring enough money to stay in a hotel? Or...
I don't know.
I know I brought this up last time, but now it's confirmed that she actually, like, got there without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to know. I want Connie to say to her,
maybe we'll find out.
So what were you gonna do if you didn't, get in contact with me here or something like that?
Connie will probably bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your ratings?
Also, Kelly. Stuff with Kelly.
It's fair.
Can we just mark part 2 and part 1 as just give it a single rating between the two of them? Okay. I feel like I should bump off some points for not actually using the words like gay, homosexual, all the other terms. The stuff with Buck, I love, and I'm gonna love hearing him again. I wanted to hear more Buck ever since Green Ring Conspiracy. He's such a great character. Stuff with Connie, I'm excited to see where that goes. The stuff with Jules is making me a little nervous, not in the way that I'm not going to enjoy what happens in a way where I'm worried about her as a person character. You know what I mean? Stuff with Hadley. Hadley annoys me. Can I just say that? I know he's supposed
No,
to
you
be
can't say
annoying. Does he annoy you too? Like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's written to be annoying.
I would imagine so.
So that works well in that perspective. Or whatever. The stuff, okay, I think the stuff that I'm enjoying the most is the plot with Eugene and Katrina.
Really?
Because I know it's not just because of Buck though, it's because it's written so amazingly. Like, do you know what I mean?
I know.
Like,
We need to hurry because we've been talking for a very long time.
I know, but like all of it's so realistic and it's so well done, and you can see how far they've come in the relationship. Because if they tried to do like the I talk for you, you talk for me thing earlier in their relationship, you just know it would have been horrible. But like it has been horrible because they have kind of done stuff like that in the past. But it just went so well, and it makes me so happy. They're my favorite couple in the show, and I love seeing stuff with them so much. So I'm gonna give it like 4.5 to 4.8, something around there. So, what do you think? Oh, also a couple of points off for the Ghost Town thing, because I have no idea what the heck that was about.
Well, that's not really fair, but alright. Your rating
yes,
is your rating.
Is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
For me, I'll go fast. I'm giving it 4.7.
I'm going 4.8.
Extremely strong start to a very long saga. We have a lot of different plot points introduced, which are all weaving together and overlapping with each other, but still, you know, giving each other their own space and coming along quite nicely and giving moderate amounts of development to all of them as they work together. We have a lot of interesting things going on. Good humor. The Doctor Who references were, you know, fantastic. We've brought back Jules, found out more about the Bassett family. We have a comic convention going on. We're finally addressing the topic of homosexuality, although I have to subtract, you know, that little bit there because of the fact that they're not actually addressing it explicitly, which, as you know, we've already talked about that. But other than that, everything is going amazing. And Buck also coming back, and
Buck!
Yes, very good. So 4.7. There you go.
Oh, also a thing I really loved is because Emily is not my favorite character, if I've made it obvious enough by stating it many times. I said in the last part that Connie was probably going to have to go to Emily because it's a mystery and she seems to be in the majority of the mysteries, but then Harlow appears and I'm like, oh, hey, Harlow. And then Harlow's like, do you want me to help you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Yes, get Harlow to help you. And then I'm like, because would you rather have a Harlow Doyle mystery or an Emily Jones mystery?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
So I was just like, oh my gosh. And then if Emily does come in and be like, let me help you, I'll be upset. Because it's like you could have worked with Harlow. It probably wouldn't have worked out very well because we know how well Connie and Harlow work together, but still.
So next time, because we're literally reviewing, we're reviewing 2 episodes per episode every second week, that means that our regular schedule is completely filled out solely by the Ties That Bind episodes. However, the Odyssey Adventure Club is still releasing episodes every month as it regularly does, which means next time will be, an extra episode. It'll still be numbered regularly, but we have to squeeze another one between this one and the next Ties That Bind episode with only a week between.
Wait, do we have a set episode for next week?
Sorry?
Do we have a set episode for next week with
Yes.
30 J's?
Yes.
Darn it, we should have done Great Adventure this summer.
That's the set episode I was going to say.
Yes!
Because I want to live in the delusion that it is still summer vacation and that I'm not swamped by being back in my 3rd year of university.
Unfortunately, it's still summer vacation for me because the teachers are on strike.
True.
But hopefully they'll be over in about 3 days.
Neither of us are in an ideal situation. I shouldn't be complaining, though, as much as Victoria would be. So, yes, next time we will review the September episode of the OAC, 30 J's Half September, as well as the last great adventure of the summer from Album 2. the first action
I've already
adventure.
heard 30 Days Hat September.
The first action adventure episode of Adventures in Odyssey. Until then, I've been Devin Francis, aka Leonard Meltzner.
And I have been Victoria Francis, aka looking forward to the next review.
And thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. This has been the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye, guys!
So long.